Okay, so let's proceed to our next topic. Thank you, Miss Sarah. Our topic for today is all about tissue maintenance and renewal, and of course, cancer. Okay, first we will define what are tissues. So, tissues are a group of cells that have a similar structure and act together to perform a specific task or a function. Did you know that different tissues are renewed at different rates? Well, we will talk more about that in this video. Okay, cells in tissues vary in the rate and pattern of turnover. At one extreme are nerve cells. And did you know that most of them last a lifetime without replacement? And at other extreme are the cells that line in the intestine, which are replaced every few days. Between these extremes, there are a spectrum of different rates and styles of cells replacement and tissue renewal. Okay, so for example, the bone. It has a turnover time about 10 years in humans, involving a renewal of the matrix as well as of the cell. So, yung old bone matrix is slowly eaten away by a set of cells called osteoclasts, or which also known as macrophages. While new matrix is deposited by another set of cells, which we call as osteoblast, or also known as fibroblast. Okay, so new red blood cells in the humans are continually generated in the bone marrow and released into the circulation, from which they are removed and destroyed after 120 days. So in the skin, on the other hand, the outer layers of the epidermis are continually flaking off and being released from below, so that the epidermis is renewed with a turnover time of about 2 months, and so on. Our life depends on this renewal process, and a large dose of ionization blocks cell divisions and thus halts renewal. Within a few days, the lining of the intestine, for example, becomes denuded of cells, leading to the devastating diarrhea and water loss characteristic of acute radiation. So clearly, there have to be control mechanism to keep cell production and cell loss in balance in the normal, healthy adult. Okay, so dito na yun mabubuo yung stem cells, wherein they generate a continuous supply of terminally differentiated cells. As we all know that many of the differentiated cells that need continual replacement are themselves unable to divide. Yung mga red blood cells natin, yung mga surface epidermal cells, and the absorptive and goblet cells of the gut lining are all of this type. And such cells are referred, or tinatawag na din, terminally differentiated. It's because they lie at the dead end of their developmental pathway. And replacement for this cell, which is called terminally differentiated, are generated from stock of proliferating precursor cells, which themselves usually derive from small numbers of dividing stem cells. And both stem cells and proliferating precursor cells are retained in the corresponding tissues along with the differentiated cells. Okay, so stem cells are not terminally differentiated and can divide without limit. Okay, remember that. Stem cells are not terminally differentiated and can divide without limit, or at least for the lifetime of the animals. Okay, so look at the figure, the picture. Okay, observe that when the stem cell divides, yung first illustration, and then yung second is yung daughter na. Each daughter can either they have choice if mag-remain ba sila as stem cell or become terminally differentiated. The terminally differentiated cells usually develop from precursor cells that divide a limited number of times before they differentiated. Did you know that stem cells can be used to repair damaged tissues? Yes, it's because stem cells proliferate indefinitely and produce differentiated progeny, and they provide for both continual renewal of normal tissues and repair of tissues lost through an injury. For example, by transfusing a few homopoietic stem cells into a mouse whose own blood stems have been destroyed by irradiation, it is possible to fully repopulate the animal with new blood cells and rescue it from death by anemia, infection, or both. A similar approach is used in the treatment of human leukemia. Sino ba dito may leukemia or may sakit na leukemia? With irradiation, followed by bone marrow transplantation. And stem cells taken directly from adult tissues hold promise for use in tissue repair, but another type of stem cell, first identified through an experiment in mice, maybe have even greater potential. It is possible also through cell culture to derive from early mouse embryos an extraordinary class of stem cells called embryonic stem cells, or ES cells. So under appropriate condition, these cells can be kept proliferating indefinitely in culture. Okay, so let's proceed to the cancer. I know. Okay, so let's proceed to the cancer. I know that you are all excited to learn more about cancer, and even me, I am so excited to learn about this concept. And I know that we pay a price for having bodies that can renew and repair themselves, but the adjusted mechanisms that control this process can go wrong, leading to a catastrophic disruption of the body's structure. Foremost among the disease of tissues renewal is cancer, which stands alongside infectious illness, malnutrition, war, and a heart disease as a major cause of death among humans nowadays. In Europe and North America, for example, 1 in 4 of us will die of cancer. Cancers originated through violation of these controls and allowing cells in the self-renewing tissues to proliferate to exist. To understand more about cancer, therefore, it is very important to understand the normal processes of tissue renewal that cancer perverts. Epidemiology identifies preventable causes of cancer. As we all know that prevention is better than cure. But to prevent cancer, we need to know what causes it. Do factors in our environment or features of our way of life trigger disease and help it to progress? If so, what are they? Answer to these questions come mainly from epidemiology, the statistical analysis of human population that is used to look for factors that correlate with disease incidence. This approach has provided strong evidence that the environment plays a part in the causation of most cases of cancer. And the types of cancer that are common, for example, vary from country to country, and studies of migrants show that it is usually more where people live rather than where they were born that governs their cancer. The types of cancers that are common, for example, vary from country to country, and studies of migrants show that it is usually where people live rather than where they were born, and that covers their cancer risk. Although it is hard to discover which specific factors in the environment or lifestyle are significant, and many remain unknown, some have been identified quite precisely. Thus, it was noted long ago that cervical cancer arising in the epithelium lining the cervix or the neck of the uterus was much commoner in married women than in single women.